a ton of recoil. So interesting to see the Rock Blast there.
Rock Blast is cool. You have the option to attack and KO things through Focus Sash, which I think is the main benefit to using that move. Maybe even like damage around a substitute as well. You break it with the first one, do some damage with the second. But no Arcanine right off the bat here. We do have Fiona, who is starting the game with the Flutter Mane and the Suicune going into Kyle's Tornadus and Urshifu.
So there's speed control options on the board for both of these players. The Suicune does get access to the Tailwind. The only thing about it is it's not Prankster. So Kyle does have the edge in that regard where he could very well go for like the Tailwind right away and just get it up and off the ground.
Suicune doesn't have Prankster, but it is incredibly bulky. That's the main reason to use it, is Suicune has very, very high HP, defense, and special defense to its name. And so even though it can't get that priority Tailwind off, it should be able to stick around, get a Tailwind off, and then further increase the speed control with Icy Wind. And so that's kind of the main reason why you want it to like stick around for a while. Possibly go for some Scald Burns here too. This Urshifu would not appreciate being burned.
No, it would not. And it's nice too because you're still doing a considerable amount of damage with the Scald regardless, but it's time to just hit the go button. It's going to be the Flutter Mane that gets that Terra Fairy to help boost up some of its fairy type attacks. And it is the booster energy as well, so you have to be really nervous about the damage output of this Flutter. The Dazzling Gleam comes through. It's going to bring Urshifu right down to its Focus Sash, and will be easy cleanup for later.
Yeah, any one attack will do 1 HP damage to this Urshifu. Bleakwind Storm coming out, Flutter Mane dodging it. That could be big because as it did Terrasilize into that Fairy type, it will take resisted damage from this Wicked Blow, and that could be a difference maker there.
Yeah, and especially if you were looking for something like a speed drop with the Bleakwind Storm, that's something that could have very much helped out now that Suicune has also got the Tailwind set up.
Tailwind does go up for Suicune and not for Tornadus, which means that if Fiona's Flutter Mane will have the chance to attack before this Urshifu, Sucker Punch probably not enough to KO it here because that Bleakwind Storm did miss, and the Flutter Mane did Terrasilize into a pure Fairy type. So a great Tailwind there from Fiona's end. This Urshifu now down to its Focus Sash means it cannot be knocked, or it can't take any more attacks before being knocked out.
So Kyle's going on the defensive here. You see the Protect and the Detect come through from the Tornadus and Urshifu respectively, just trying to stall out some of these turns of Tailwind. And you just have to buy yourself that valuable time because, as you said, the Flutter Mane's just not in a range right now where you can pick it up. So if you can force Fiona to have to use a couple of turns to switch around, that'll really help to try to get yourself back into things.
I like the double Protect there from Kyle. You do stall out one turn of Fiona's Tailwind, and if you do opt to go for Tailwind on this coming turn with your own Tornadus, you get the 2 turns of staggered Tailwind at the end. It's kind of something we hinted at earlier, is that if you can get Tailwind set up such that yours expires after your opponent's, you're in a much better position after that first Tailwind goes down.
And we have seen that in our previous stream matches, that it has paid off in dividends for some of our trainers to be able to stagger that out. So we do see a nice chunk of damage into the Suicune, but Flutter Mane's able to follow that up for a double knockout. Kyle's going to have something in the back that's able to stall out these final couple of turns of Fiona's Tailwind.
I really like the Sucker Punch into the Suicune there as opposed to the Flutter Mane. Flutter Mane is low enough that most things on Kyle's team should be able to knock it out, but getting any kind of damage into that Suicune will be very meaningful because, again, it is a very, very bulky Pokemon. Now, Glamora comes out. You have to imagine the possibility of a +1 Meteor Beam might be enough to KO Suicune from here. A Grass-type attacking Ogerpon probably does as well. And also, more importantly, Fiona has only 1 turn of Tailwind remaining here. So if this Suicune and Flutter Mane don't get anything done on this coming turn, it'll be much more difficult for Fiona's Tailwind to be made use of.
And you can just go for double Spiky Shield here then if you're Kyle.
Right.
Just stall out that final turn and then all the going is good. You have those 2 turns that you talked about for the staggered Tailwind, and Glamora is really scary, especially if you're able to use that Power Herb and the Meteor Beam combo. That special attack boost can really get out of hand. So Fiona's thinking ahead. You're going to switch out this Suicune, be able to bring it in just a little bit later, and you are a little worried having that Ogerpon on the field. Rillaboom makes a nice switch in here to be able to take a move from that Ogerpon comfortably.
Rillaboom, one of the best defensive swaps into Ogerpon, but Flutter Mane will get the chance to go for at least 1 more Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam. Thankfully for Glamora, it does resist it and gets to fire off a Meteor Beam here. That Power Herb will allow it to attack on this first turn after the special attack boost.
And I love that Kyle didn't just play it safe either. Just decided, hey, I've got to start getting some damage down. And it is going to be into the Rillaboom, which does not take that super well. That's already going to be taken down to about a quarter HP. And, of course, the Fluttermane also gets knocked out for its struggles. Kyle is in a much better position now that he's been able to just go on the offensive here on this final turn of Fiona's Tailwind.
I love that you called that out, because if Kyle did opt to double Spiky Shield there's not a whole lot he could have lost by going for these attacks. The Glamora, based on how it attacked before the Ogerpon even on Kyle's side, probably would have also outspit the Suicune and KO'd it with that Meteor Beam, which would have opened up the Ogerpon to go straight for that Ivy Cudgel into Fluttermane. Even though the Fluttermane was Terra Fairy, it does not have a boosting item in terms of its damage output, and so the Dazzling Gleam there, not a huge damage threat like we saw. Ogerpon able to easily take that Dazzling Gleam, finish it off with an Ivy Cudgel, and now you have 2 more turns of Tailwind left if you're Kyle to make use of this Glamora's boosted special attack.
And at this point, too, like, the Rillaboom is in such a precarious spot. Lander is here. It would love to get a substitute up in the face of both of these Pokemon, but it's still going to be very difficult to do based on the offensive pressure of the Glamora and the Ogerpon.
It is, though the Glamora did use its Power Herb already and does not have an attack that can do even neutral damage to this Landorus anymore. So a really smart fake out into Ogerpon, which is the bigger threat into that Landorus.
And this is going to be a free and easy substitute here for the Landorus as the Rillaboom gets knocked out now. Nice fake out, but the substitute, yeah, I mean, you definitely love to see this if you're Fiona, but how does Kyle get around it now? You could still crit with Ivy Cudgel.
You can crit with Ivy Cudgel, like even the Landorus did take a quarter of its HP away, so if there was any question as to whether or not Ivy Cudgel would KO before, now it certainly does. You still just have to worry about this substitute, though. Glamora at +1 special attack may be able to break that substitute even with a Sludge Bomb, which is resisted, which would then, of course, open up the Ogerpon for a KO with Ivy Cudgel. But since Landorus is carrying Sludge Bomb as coverage, you are threatening both Glamora and Ogerpon with super effective damage with this Landorus. And you also kind of have to take into account Suicune has Snarl. You have the option to mitigate that special attack boost from the Meteor Beam, which would possibly allow Landorus to survive a Sludge Bomb, have its substitute not be broken. And if Landorus gets attacked by the Glamora and the substitute doesn't break, I think Fiona just kind of instantly wins this game.
No, it was such a smart preservation of the Suicune because it is also in a position, actually, it's actually a little sad. It's not in Citrus Berry range yet.
Yeah.
It didn't activate that yet, so you almost wish, well, I think that it had been activated a little bit ago, but Terrestrialization has yet to be used on Kyle's side. So one way you can get around that weakness to Sludge Bomb, just get rid of the grass typing. There's nothing that you need to really worry about right now to have the other ability, the water absorb ability. Yeah. So just get the body aspect boost.
Sludge Bomb comes through here into the Landorus from Glamora with the +1 special attack boost is enough to break the substitute. So based on what this Ogerpon is doing, Hornleech comes out from Suicune, able to KO it, especially thanks to that grassy terrain power boost, but also because of the special defense boost. Landorus probably can't even 2-hit KO this Ogerpon anymore, so this is looking very good for Kyle.
Yeah, it really is. And after such a rough start as well, missing that bleak when the crit, though, does not feel good. But you're able to follow that up with a double hit into the Landorus and just take it out.
The Tailwind does end, though, for Kyle, so this Landorus should be the fastest thing left on the field. If you are able to KO this Ogerpon, I don't think that Glamora can KO the Landorus from here, but thanks to that Embody Aspect special defense boost, it might be very close. That was a critical hit Sludge Bomb that still only did maybe like 40 to 50%, so it's going to come down to whether or not this Landorus can KO Ogerpon.
Well, Ogerpon's going to protect itself this turn with the Spiky Shield. The Earth Power now not going to be able to hit its mark, which leaves Glamora to go for an attack. And the Sludge Bomb into the Landorus is actually quite a big chunk of damage, and it gets the poison. If it wasn't going to be a knockout on the next Sludge Bomb, it will now because of that poison recoil.
That is a nice little poison there. I think it's just kind of insurance for this game to be over in Kyle's favor. Based on how much damage that Sludge Bomb did, it looked like one more should be able. It did just over half of Landorus's remaining HP with that first Sludge Bomb. But a very smart Spiky Shield there from Ogerpon, not only protecting it from damage, but getting a little bit of recovery from that grassy terrain. And because of that, the Glamora will be freed up to go for one more Sludge Bomb and bring Kyle a 1-0 lead here in round 8.
That start of the game looked pretty bad for Kyle. Like, I don't have any other way to put that, is that it just felt like he was already on a back foot and had to figure out a way to weave back in some momentum.
It was tough, right? Because Suicune was on the field. It's really hard to get meaningful damage into Suicune on the first turn of a game, especially if you don't have super effective damage threatening it. The Urshifu and the Tornadus on Kyle's end got some good chip damage onto that Suicune, and like you called out, Rosemary, importantly did not activate its Citrus Berry. So that meant that the Suicune was much easier to take down later on, sitting just over half of its health remaining instead of right around 3/4 of its health remaining, which could really just set up that Ogerpon and Glamora. I think the smartest thing Kyle did there was, stagger these Tailwinds, get the Glamora and Ogerpon on the field with at least 2 extra turns of Tailwind compared to Fiona's team.
Yeah, but that Bleak Wind miss, it all comes back to that is really what I identify as one of the ways that Kyle really had to adjust the game plan. Otherwise, as you called out, you Bleak Wind damage helps to potentially put that Flutter Mane into Sucker Punch range,
right.
And then you just get a huge KO onto a big piece of Fiona's team. Other than that, though, Kyle preserved that Ogerpon so beautifully and was able to get a nice KO onto the Rillaboom before he was able to actually get something like a Grassy Glide into a terrestrialized Ogerpon.
Yeah, unfortunately, Fiona kind of had to fake out the Ogerpon that turn, which left the Rillaboom vulnerable to that Sludge Bomb. And a +1 special attack after the Meteor Beam, it would have been more than enough. And that Meteor Beam coming in really handy here, because without that special attack boost, I don't think you break the substitute on the Landorus, which was very important, and I don't think you 2-hit KO it there with Sludge Bomb at the very end of that game.
Now, looking ahead to game number 2, do we see any adjustments from either player? I feel like the 4 that they picked feel right.
I kind of agree. The Landorus on Fiona's end was actually looking very threatening under the right circumstances. Just happened to turn out that, Kyle had a little bit more left in the tank than Fiona did when that Landorus hit the field. I think that Landorus threatening Glamora really heavily is very important. The Glamora on Kyle's end is the Terra Grass, which means that even if it terrestrializes, Landorus can hit it super effectively with the Sludge Bomb. And it's really funny to me that Glamora, I think in the prior regulations before the Indigo Disc DLC was released, it was a very kind of unassuming Pokemon. It was there to spread toxic spikes, get some mortal spins off. But now, thanks to the Meteor Beam Power Herb combination, it's actually turned into just a straight up sweeper.
If you live long enough, you live to see yourself become the villain. I guess is how they say that. But it's going to be a little bit of a switch up here for Kyle, as the Urshifu is left behind for this lead. It's the Water Ogerpon.
I like that a lot. Water Ogerpon matches up very well into both Suicune and a non-power boosting item Flutter Mane, especially when you do opt for that special defense boost from Embody Aspect if you terrestrialize. But even without that, you threaten a lot of damage into Flutter Mane with Ivy Cudgel. You threaten Suicune with a Horn Leech. It's a pretty good chunk of damage without that Grassy Terrain boost this time. And more importantly, you kind of prevent Suicune from going for those Scalds because of the threat of the Follow Me Water Absorb.
I love this play, though, here from Fiona, because essentially what you're doing is you're protecting the Flutter Mane, so it's not going to take any damage. You know that Suicune has that natural bulk to be able to tank a hit like this Bleak Wind Storm. You get the speed drop, though, which does sting a little bit as the Horn Leech is able to make its way through first. But more importantly, you do get that Citrus Berry recovery. So it does look like Suicune is able to hang around for just a little longer. But take a look at how much damage it actually took from that Horn Leech. That might just seal the deal.
That is a lot of damage from Horn Leech, even without that Grassy Terrain boost. And that's kind of the pitfall of Suicune, is that it took those 2 attacks. Bleak Wind Storm, Horn Leech is a good chunk of damage, but then what do you get in return? You get an Icy Wind for pretty pitiful damage on Ogerpon that will just be healed up by a single Horn Leech, and then Icy Wind on a Tornadus that is just going to Prankster Tailwind anyway. It's one of the pitfalls of using Suicune, both now and in formats past, in that it does stick around for a while, but can at times struggle to get anything done.
Ooh, this Protect here too, that's going to deny a knockout, as the Flutter Mane was attempting to go for a Moonblast into that slot. Maybe also expecting that the Ogerpon here could very well just go for another Horn Leech into the Rillaboom, but instead it's the Flutter Mane, and that's going to take 80%. Ogerpon is going to be back up to full, and while the Rillaboom is able to make the switch in here, it's in a very vulnerable spot in front of this Tornadus.
I love that Horn Leech. You're tempted to go for Ivy Cudgel there into Flutter Mane because it's a little bit more damage, and you also have the chance for the critical hit. But without the critical hit, you're not going to KO the Flutter Mane most likely. And because the Rillaboom swapped in there, you got the boosted damage onto that Horn Leech, which meant that Ogerpon is now all the way back up to full HP, facing down again this Flutter Mane that is not going to be able to boost its own attack, or special attack with an item.
Yeah, now we see the Tailwind come through from the Tornadus, and the Moonblast, well, it's able to... Oh, it's not even going to be a knockout here. So it's able to get that Tornadus really low, but the Fluttermane now gets knocked out for all of its troubles. So the Rillaboom is going to have to put in some work here as the U-turn comes through, does help to limit some of that HP on the Ogerpon, but it's still above 50%.
It is. It's going to get that grassy terrain recovery in the next couple turns as well. So this Ogerpon proving to be an issue for Fiona already. We did see it also outspeed the Rillaboom even in Tailwind. So that's going to be... No, the Tailwind is from Tornadus. Never mind. Of course it outsped. For some reason, I thought that Fiona had the Tailwind up there. Disregard that, but again, it's a big deal, right? Rillaboom comes back in. It will be able to threaten with a Grassy Glide or a very powerful Wood Hammer, which probably KOs Ogerpon from here, but you still have to worry about the Tornadus. And I really like that Kyle is kind of refusing to use Tailwind until it's absolutely necessary. What he did by not using Tailwind until the third turn of this game is it means that Tailwind lasts so much further into the game, and you're not wasting Tailwind turns and you already have speed advantages.
Yeah, now this Landorus is just in a very difficult spot. You can go for the fake out here in the Ogerpon, so you at least deny the Ivy Cudgel for one turn, so you have to make the most of this one. As the Bleakwind Storm comes through, now Ogerpon doesn't get a chance to move, but the Sludge Bomb here to pick up the Tornadus. Kyle gets to bring something else in to that Tailwind now.
Yeah, Tailwind still has 2 turns remaining. Ogerpon did not have the opportunity to attack that turn, but the Bleakwind Storm, meaningful damage on both of these targets. This Assault Vest Rillaboom took it pretty well, but now you have to worry about this Glamora. You've got the Glamora back in with Tailwind up. Meteor Beam will be able to KO Landorus if it connects. Might come close on Rillaboom.
We actually saw it did like 70% or something.
Yeah.
It was a lot, even though it has an Assault Vest.
Yeah, I mean, if you double target it with like Meteor Beam and Ivy Cudgel or something, that's enough for a KO. You obviously have to worry about this Landorus. It will threaten a KO onto Glamora with a single Earth Power, but given the fact that you have access to the Meteor Beam on this turn, there is really no safe swap for Fiona with this Glamora on the field.
No, Suicune doesn't want to take that either. So it's going to be very difficult, I think, to try to stall out these last couple of turns of the Tailwind. You also don't have many protects on this team outside of something like the Landorus. So you're leaving yourself really vulnerable to knowing that like either the Rillaboom has to switch out here or it's going to have to take an attack.
That's what's going to happen here. Suicune comes in for the Rillaboom, not wanting to take a Sludge Bomb or Meteor Beam. And a Terrestrialization coming out, the first of this game? Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to actually see the Fluttermane go for the Terrestrialization earlier on.
Yeah.
And now you're really looking at something potentially like the Landorus to have to take that Terra maybe after the Tailwind has expired just to be able to boost up some of those Sludge Bombs. But it's going to be a Terra Grass here under Glamora, really save itself from something like that Earth Power you were talking about. But it's Meteor Beam time. See if it can actually connect onto its target.
Power Herb will activate, meaning that the charge turn required for Meteor Beam is no longer, but Meteor Beam actually misses the Suicune. A really unfortunate turn of events there. Meteor Beam, I believe, is 90% accurate, so even though you still get the special attack boost, that does not get lost because of miss. You miss out on that damage, and that's a big turn for Fiona there. I like the Terra Grass a lot on Glamora. If for some reason Landorus gets Earth Power that slot and Ivy Cudgel doesn't KO, which like it will from that slot, but the Terra Grass there means that the Rillaboom does not threaten anymore with grass type attacks. Suicune can only rely on Icy Wind for damage instead of Scald, and Landorus of course will not be able to KO it with Earth Power. I believe there's still 1 turn of Tailwind remaining, so this Landorus still being threatened by Ivy Cudgel, and of course Glamora threatens a lot of damage with those +1 attacks. I imagine it may not be able to KO Suicune from here, even though it is at +1 just because Suicune again is very bulky, but in a very powerful position here.
Yeah, at least you also have removed the Citrus Berry too, so you know that what you see is what you're going to get in terms of the HP that the Suicune is dealing with, except for maybe grassy terrain healing. But it's time for another Terrestrialization. It is going to be the Landorus getting that Terra Poison, so you've got the Sludge Bombs that do get that increased power now, but is it going to be enough to be able to deal with the Glamora before it can deal with your partner? Suicune is able to hang on with a sliver of HP, but the Ivy Cudgel, that Landorus hangs on by just a thread to get this Sludge Bomb down into the Glamora.
That's
a huge knockout.
That is a big Terrestrialization there, both offensive and defensive in this case. If you hadn't Terrestrialized the Landorus there, Fiona's Landorus certainly would have been knocked out by an Ivy Cudgel, and you get the boosted damage from the Terrestrialization to KO the Glamora, while your Suicune also survives the Sludge Bomb and gets to set up Tailwind. So now Kyle has lost his Glamora and is now down to his final 2 Pokemon, and because the Glamora has also Terrestrialized already, the Ogerpon will now be vulnerable to these Terra Poison Sludge Bombs.
Yeah, this is a huge turn here for Fiona. And like, especially with those survivals, you can see that there's the Fluttermane in the back. This booster energy is going to give a photosynthesis boost to Fluttermane's speed. So that could help out a little bit.
That's actually major. I think that might allow, it certainly allows Fluttermane to outspeed Suicune even though Tailwind is up. It might be very close to see whether or not this Landorus is able to outspeed Suicune. I think if Landorus is trained to be, as fast as it possibly can be, it will be enough. But a lot of players are opting to be a little bit bulkier with these Landorus, especially because you have this defensive Terra Poison option, which means that this Fluttermane might still be the fastest thing on the field here. We're going to see the Landorus protect, not wanting to risk it yet.
Yeah, I wouldn't either, but you're going to see the Ogerpon kind of feeling the same vibes over there, so going to go for the spiky shield as well. But Fluttermane is in fact faster than this Suicune, even in the Tailwind, so you get a chance to get this Dazzling Gleam down, but Suicune is so bulky, it's going to hang on with just a little HP, but that Icy Wind drop on the speed of the Fluttermane means that this Landorus can just go for the gold.
Oh, wow. That's a crucial survival there from Suicune. That's exactly why you run Suicune, right? It's because that you have these opportunities where Suicune gets to use its max bulk to survive that Dazzling Gleam, even though the Fluttermane was able to outspeed and get a crucial Icy Wind off here, which will certainly allow Landorus to survive, or rather attack first, get the Sludge Bomb off to KO Ogerpon, and now Fluttermane does not have the chance to knock it out before it can attack.
Yeah, a Fluttermane is just not going to be able to do enough work here. So even with this, with this Snarl as well, just to add insult to injury to that Fluttermane's output, this should be another, or just another game, I think.
I don't know. This Rillaboom is the only thing left for
Can Rillaboom just go for the Grassy Glide, though? Fluttermane's not necessarily known for its physical bulk.
It's not, and it's taken a little bit of damage from that Snarl and the Icy Wind. It might be very close, actually, just because this Rillaboom, with the Assault Vest at -1, so we can, or rather, Fluttermane probably can't KO it, right? Because it's the booster speed set as well.
You say that, but we've seen some things, so I don't want to call it until it's totally over yet. But Rillaboom gets to go for the Wood Hammer. It's going to connect onto the Fluttermane and knock it out. So we are going to a game number 3. Fiona tying up the series.
That is the exact reason to run Suicune. Like I said, like you're in a tough spot there with the Tailwind going up and Fluttermane still being faster. But Suicune is so bulky that a lot of times you're in a position like that Kyle was with the Fluttermane. You see 2 Pokemon in the red, very little HP left. You think, oh, Dazzling Gleam. Fluttermane's very strong. Dazzling Gleam easily just KOs these. But Suicune able to stomach it and get off that game-winning Icy Wind instead.
Dazzling Gleam always feels like it does way less damage to me than you think it's going to.
Right.
But I definitely give credit to Suicune's natural bulk in that situation, but I always feel like when I see a Fluttermane, I'm like, I wish you do a little more. Like, if I'm using the Fluttermane, I always wish it does just a tiny bit more.
I bet Sylveon on Hyper Voice would have KO'd there.
Yeah, I'm telling you. You gotta think about that for the next time. Just budget Fluttermane at this point.
I mean, I do think the beginning of this game was very well played by Kyle. Going for those Horn Leeches early on meant that Ogerpon stayed very healthy. You took advantage of the Rillaboom swap and got a lot more power out of that Horn Leech thanks to the grassy terrain. But Fiona turned it around really well. Once the Tailwind ended on Kyle's side, that gave Fiona the room she needed to, stomach the blows from this Glimmora. I think that Meteor Beam miss actually coming in pretty clutch there, because if Suicune goes down there, I don't know that there's a way back into this game. But even after that, Fiona took advantage of that very, very well and played to all of her outs extremely well.
And Kyle also still made that very close. Despite the Meteor Beam miss, you're really banking on like Ivy Cudgel crit. Like you still had outs to go for that would have been able to get you that game win. But absolutely, Fiona navigated that endgame beautifully. And sometimes it is a miss or a crit that you're looking for in order to try to seal up a game.
Yeah, I mean, if that's your only option, you got to play for it, right? And that's exactly what Fiona did. I really like the Terra Poison on Landorus, both in terms of just generally speaking in team building, but she used it very, very well in that game, both offensively and defensively, which is exactly what you want out of your Terrestrialization.
Whoa!
But we're moving into game 3 here in round number 8 in Knoxville, and the Chi-Yu and the Arcanine, both of which make their first appearance in this set.
I am so excited about seeing both of these Pokemon in particular, because I was like, you know what? I feel like they've both kind of figured out the 4 that they want to bring to a game.
Yeah.
But this was kind of one of those wild, out-of-the-box choices that completely change the game here.
It works out well for Fiona in this case, I think, because the two things that resist fire, one of it's double resisting fire, the Arcanine, are out on the field in front of this Chi-Yu, which is a great place to be. The Suicune especially is able to stomach really any hit from it and slow it down either with Icy Wind or Snarl.
I think the other thing that you look at too is that the Arcanine actually blocks this Tornadus' ability to go for something like a Sunny Day.
Yeah.
Because think about that. You're just going to be boosting up this Arcanine, despite the fact that you might have wanted to be able to set the sun for your Chi-Yu or your Flutter in the back, or even to mitigate some of the Scald potential here from the Suicune. It's just going to be a Terra Steel as the Dark Pulse into the Arcanine.
Are you
It's
kidding
just
me?
a one-hit knockout.
Whoa.
No way.
I forgot how much damage Choice Specs Chi-Yu does. We haven't seen this thing around in a while, and that is a clean one-hit KO on a neutral Dark Pulse. Arcanine, a generally pretty bulky Pokemon too. That's a lot of damage, Rosemary.
Remember, though, that a lot of the Hisuian Arcanine that we've seen as of late have been Assault Fest.
Right.
So it must be heavily invested into its offense, and of course that Chi-Yu was very hungry for a KO. Now it is so set up for success here. This Chi-Yu is locked into the Dark Pulse, so at the very least Fiona can play around that, knowing that that's what the Chi-Yu has to go for. Bleak Windstorm is gonna miss the Suicune, but look at how much damage it does to this Landorus.
Earth Power will connect, though. No speed drop from that Bleak Windstorm, which means Chi-Yu will be KO'd. No more very strong Dark Pulses coming through, and Suicune also has a chance to attack here. We'll get to Icy Wind with Tornadus and lower its speed by 1 stage.
Is that going to be enough, though, right? Like, when you look at the speed interaction between the Landorus and Tornadus, you're really hoping that that's going to drop the Tornadus enough that this Landorus can try to pick up the KO.
I think it has to be, right? The Tailwind is up on both sides, and now that
I would
Tornadus...
assume.
Yeah, and now that Tornadus is also a Steel type, you just Earth Power it.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
There's no protection from Tornadus now from this Landorus on Fiona's end. Urshifu does come out for Kyle, though. If you're in a position where you need some offense, this is a Pokemon to call on.
It is, for sure. And especially now that that you know it has the Focus Sash, it can tank a hit. And that's going to be the biggest importance here for this Urshifu. Try to knock out this Landorus, get rid of a big threat. But this Suicune is still at full HP, and it also has the Terra Grass. So that is something that you have to consider playing around.
It is. Suicune has a lot of defense at its fingertips here. The Urshifu comes in. I don't know that a Wicked Blow is able to KO either of the things on Fiona's end of the field. The Bleak Wind Storm missed. You know, it wouldn't have done a whole lot of damage to the Suicune, but when you're facing a Suicune, any bit of damage you can get is appreciated. So that might come in to be a little bit unfortunate for Kyle later on in this game, based on how much damage he might be able to get off into this Suicune later on.
Well, the Tornadus is going to leave the field. Kyle wants to preserve that for later, potentially get another Tailwind up when you're able to take the Suicune down. And Flutter Mane now going to be revealed as Kyle's 4th and final Pokemon. Really nice as well, because you're getting rid of the speed drop onto the Tornadus and bringing in a Pokemon that has that booster energy speed. The Urshifu goes for the Sucker Punch, though it's going to fail because it was going right into the Rillaboom. And so this Icy Wind is able to connect onto both the Urshifu and the Flutter Mane and drop their speed.
Great turn from Fiona there. The Landorus does fear a lot of damage from that Urshifu, especially because the Bleak Wind Storm might have put it right into Sucker Punch range. So a great swap there into Rillaboom, denies any damage from Sucker Punch, and puts Rillaboom in a spot where it still threatens a lot of heavy damage. Of course, the Wood Hammer should probably just KO the Flutter Mane outright because of the grassy terrain boost and just the high base power of the attack. Urshifu's Focus Sash being broken by the Icy Wind is also huge. Not only is its speed dropped by 1 stage, making it slower than this Rillaboom, but a single strong attack would be able to KO it from here. It's a really nice turn there from Fiona.
Yeah, super, super nice. And we've seen how much that Wood Hammer can do. Of course, it was into a Flutter Mane that wasn't sitting at full HP, but Wood Hammer still packs a huge punch. And so this is going to be a very critical turn to see if Fiona can just take one more knockout. Flutter Mane is going to leave the field, though, and so it's going to have to be the Tornadus that takes its spot. At least you have the resist.
Yeah, it's nice. The Terrestrialization there means that a Icy Wind or a Wood Hammer will be resisted by this Tornadus. Wood Hammer instead going into the Urshifu for no damage because it did opt to go for a Protect, not wanting to take any damage on its own. Suicune goes for Snarl, really hoping to lower this Flutter Mane special attack. We'll take it into Tornadus as well.
Yeah, you will. Now those Bleak Wind Storms are going to be way less impactful versus something like the Rillaboom, who would have to take a super effective hit. But at this point, you're stalling out the Tailwind. Now Kyle gets to bring in his own Tornadus to set it up with Prankster. And you just hope that that's going to be enough to be able to get this Flutter Mane back into position. But it did lose its booster energy. That's not here anymore.
It lost its booster energy, but it was already at -1 speed from the Icy Wind, so it kind of just didn't have the booster energy anyway. I like the swap a lot from Kyle, knowing Tailwind was about to end. You have the option to go for it one more time here with your Prankster Tornadus, regardless of any speed drops from Icy Wind's prior, but actually go straight for offense with that Bleak Wind Storm.
I like that better, because if you're expecting Fiona to go for another Tailwind to try to set that up, then you could go ahead and stagger those turns, but it's not going to matter anymore. That Flutter Mane gets taken out as soon as it hits the field again. A Wood Hammer, plenty, as the Scald into the Tornadus isn't going to do a whole lot, but it does get the burn and going to start to chip away at that Tornadus' HP.
That was almost just an impossible position for Kyle to be in. The Wood Hammer Scald combo into that slot was pretty free, considering the Urshifu had not got it protected in the prior turn. Wood Hammer, maybe not enough to KO Urshifu if it had stayed in the field, but Scald certainly would have picked it up. So you kind of just have to pick whether you want Flutter Mane or Urshifu to be your last Pokemon standing. In this case, Kyle chose Urshifu, which I respect. The Flutter Mane being the speed boosting set, and without the option to Terrasilize for the extra damage, means that it's probably not going to be able to output a whole lot of damage at all. But you still have to worry about this Suicune on Fiona's end, which, I mean, Wicked Blow can crit through, but you can't crit through a burn, unfortunately, and this Suicune has so much bulk. Not to mention the Wood Hammer is coming out from Rillaboom as well.
Yeah, Wood Hammer has just been absolutely packing a punch here for this Rillaboom, and you're now down to your final two Pokemon. This is all that Kyle has left, and you have to consider when you're about to weave in something like the Tailwind. That's going to come out now, knowing this Tornadus has already been kept in check so well by things like the Snarl and the Burn. The Grassy Glide, though, into the Urshifu, gets a chance to do some damage, but of course the Wicked Blow in response is able to take out that Rillaboom. Now the score is even. We've got two Pokemon apiece. Suicune sets the Tailwind for this Landorus in the back.
Landorus will be able to come in here and threaten a KO with Earth Power into either of those Pokemon. Again, Tornadus, usually a flying type, immune to those ground type attacks, but because it did opt to go for the Terastallization early on, Landorus will be able to KO it with a single Earth Power. However, you still have to worry about Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch from Urshifu will be able to KO Landorus, most likely because of that Bleak Wind Storm damage early on. You have to wonder whether Fiona wants to try and possibly go for some Scalds here with the Suicune, maybe get some extra damage or a burn in this Urshifu. You can even try and get, cheeky with a substitute coming out of Landorus. I think you do have to worry about Tornadus going for Bleak Wind Storms again, but if you have the option to get an Icy Wind off with Suicune, that makes the job so much easier. There's so many different things Fiona has at her disposal here because of this Suicune's defensive capabilities.
But the Bleak Wind Storm is going to come through first, so you are able to land some damage into the Landorus, and critically, you're going to drop its speed. That's really important for the Urshifu to follow that up with the Wicked Blow to knock out this Landorus before it's able to get another attack. And Kyle is breathing a sigh of relief. The Scald, though, comes through into the Urshifu as long as it doesn't get the burn. You're feeling good.
That is a huge, huge turn for Kyle. The Bleak Wind Storm speed drop means that Urshifu attacks before the Landorus gets that huge Wicked Blow off, and there is no Earth Powers coming out from that Landorus. It will be Suicune against the world here. The grassy terrain goes away. There is no more chip recovery every turn. And honestly, I still think there's actually a chance Suicune can close this out. I believe it still has its Citrus Berry intact, so it is very healthy. And it looks like Urshifu may be in range for one more Scald. Nice turn of events there. The burn not going off, but Sunny Day will actually reduce the damage from Scald, so a very smart play from Kyle.
Yep, because look at that. What a bulky Suicune. That is a Wicked Blow that brings it down into the range of getting that recovery back from its Citrus Berry, but it still looks like it's about to take 3 hits to knock it out. But that is a critical Sunny Day.
No, it doesn't.
No burn. So that Urshifu is hanging on for at least one more turn.
Huge Sunny Day from Kyle there. You might be tempted to go for more chip damage with that Bleak Wind Storm, but I believe it was at -1 special attack from a Snarl, so that would have been very little damage. And Sunny Day instead there means that Urshifu will be guaranteed to get off one more Wicked Blow, which should be enough damage to put Kyle ahead and take this third game, thanks to some crucial non-burns from those two Scalds into Urshifu.
Yeah, but the Detect here is so nice just to make sure that you aren't going to be taking another attack. Tornadus, it also buys it some time to try to hit the Bleak Wind Storm, but Suicune is going to dodge that with some quick feet. We got the Icy Wind that's able to come through onto the Tornadus, but look at that. It just does such minimal damage.
Yeah.
Thing that you got to do, though, is try to stall out this Tornadus, kind of knocking itself out to its burn.
The burn chip is going to be important here. If there's a chance that Fiona has It is because the Tornadus on Kyle's end has that burn and will be taking passive damage every turn. But I really like that protect play from Kyle. There's no chance we can KO the Tornadus that turn because of the sun. And now you have the Tailwind option from your own Tornadus. But Wicked Blow, not able to KO Suicune. Bleakwind Storm comes through, still not able to KO. Suicune hangs on with 9 HP.
And the Icy Wind to come through into the Urshifu is going to be enough to knock it out. So it comes down to Tornadus hitting this final Bleakwind Storm.
Hitting one more Bleakwind Storm, and the sun actually paying huge dividends here because a Scald probably not able to KO Tornadus from this range because that damage is mitigated. It is truly down to whether Kyle can connect one more Bleakwind Storm to KO this Suicune.
But the Icy Wind, you still get the speed drops.
Yeah.
So you're buying yourself some time for this Suicune to be faster once the Tailwind on Kyle's side expires. With the Scald, though, too, you're waiting out this sunny day. You just maybe want to try to get a crit with the Scald in the sun.
Even in the sun, that's probably still Suicune's biggest source of damage. I imagine Scald plus Burn plus maybe one more Burn is enough, but Snarl comes through here. A little bit of damage into Tornadus. We'll see if it connects one more Bleakwind Storm. Did it miss?
It missed! No way!
No.
Bleakwind Storm is going to
massive.
miss. The Burn is going to bring this Tornadus down into what looks like one final Snarl hit, but it doesn't even matter.
Oh
So he
my
can just go
gosh.
for the Scald in the sun, and just like that, Fiona takes this series 2-1.
Wow. That is one of the closest endings I've seen in a long time. That's Scald coming out from Suicune.